Welcome to our deep dive into the wild world of AI and synthetic biology. We're going to be talking about,
Oh,
yeah, wild stuff, right? Like standing on the edge of a massive wave of innovation and figuring out, do we ride it or do we try and contain it? And we've got some great sources to help us figure that out. Excerpts from Mustafa Suleiman's book, The Coming Wave,
great book.
and Bill Gates' take on it. So buckle up, because this is going to be quite the ride.
It's pretty fascinating, right? Like,
Yeah.
we think of technology slowly changing things.
Yeah.
But Suleiman's argument is that this time it's different. We're about to experience a shift as profound as the invention of agriculture or the internet.
I mean, I can already feel the ground shaking. I mean, you've been
Right.
following these fields for a while now. Do you buy this whole coming wave idea, or is this just hype?
Oh, it's definitely not hype.
Yeah.
Think about the internal combustion engine. At first, it was this clunky, expensive thing that only a few people had.
Right.
And then Henry Ford comes along with the Model T, and suddenly everyone's driving.
Yeah.
Cities change.
Totally.
Industries are born. The whole world is reshaped.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. So you're saying that AI and synthetic biology are about to have their Model T moment.
Exactly. And what's even more interesting, I think, is that technology often spreads,
Right.
regardless of how hard people try to control it.
Hmm.
Think about the printing press. The Ottoman Empire tried to ban it. They were worried about its impact on society, but it still swept across the world.
Yeah, but what about nuclear weapons? That's the one thing we've kind of managed to keep under wraps.
Yeah, nuclear weapons definitely the exception there.
Yeah.
But the fact that we have managed to contain them, at least to some extent,
Right.
does offer a sliver of hope. It shows that with enough international cooperation and careful planning, containment is possible.
Okay, so there's hope.
Yeah.
But the question is, can we replicate that success with AI and synthetic biology? I mean, they seem to be evolving at an even faster pace.
That's true. That's the big question.
Yes. Well, let's break it down. Let's start with AI. What's actually happening right now? Suleiman, in his book, starts things off with this story about AlphaGo,
Yeah.
the AI that learned to play the ancient game of Go.
Yeah, AlphaGo's story.
Yeah.
It really is a perfect illustration of how quickly AI is evolving. It not only learned to play Go at a superhuman level,
Yeah.
it beat the world champion Kiji.
And then there's AlphaZero.
Right.
Even crazier. Learned to play Go entirely through self-play.
Yeah, no human input whatsoever.
No human input, just playing against itself.
It became the ultimate Go master just by playing against itself.
That's wild.
Yeah, it really shattered our assumptions about AI.
Yeah.
It showed us the power of deep learning, this technique that's now behind everything,
Deep learn.
from self-driving cars
Okay.
to facial recognition software. You probably use it every day without even realizing it.
It's kind of freaky when you think about it.
It is.
So deep learning, that's the engine behind these large language models too, right?
Yeah.
Like ChatGPT.
Exactly. LLMs, they're becoming incredibly sophisticated, and they're already having a huge impact.
Yeah, they can do so much.
They can write code, translate languages, compose music. I mean, it's really pretty incredible.
I even heard about this Google engineer who thought one of these LLMs had become sentient.
Oh, right. The Lambda case.
It's like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't actually sentient,
Right.
but it really highlights how blurry the lines are becoming between AI and human intelligence.
That is a little creepy.
It is.
Makes you wonder what happens when these systems become even more advanced.
Right.
But even with these early LLMs, there are concerns about bias, right? Like
Yeah.
with that one generating racially biased text.
That's a real problem. These systems are trained on massive data sets.
Right.
And if those data sets contain bias, the AI will reflect those biases. So it's important to remember that even though the technology itself is fascinating, we can't ignore the ethical considerations that come with it.
Right. We've got to keep our eyes wide open. So we've got this AI that's evolving at an incredible pace. But what does it mean for society as a whole? Suleiman seems especially concerned about the impact on nation states. He says they're already in a pretty fragile state.
Yeah, nation states are facing a lot of challenges right now. Declining trust in institutions, growing inequality, the rise of populism.
It's a lot.
These problems have been brewing for a while, and the coming wave could make them even worse.
He uses his own experience working in London's City Hall to illustrate this point, right?
He does. He talks about how incredibly difficult it was to get anything done within these massive bureaucratic systems. The lack of agility,
Yeah.
the tendency to blame shift rather than solve problems.
Yeah.
And that was before AI was even a major factor.
So how does AI fit into all of this? It's not like it's taking over governments yet anyway.
Not directly, no.
Yeah.
But imagine the potential for disruption. Think about deepfakes.
Deepfakes.
AI-generated videos that are practically indistinguishable from reality.
They're getting really good.
They're incredibly realistic.
Right.
And they can be used to spread disinformation.
Oh,
So discord undermine trust in leaders and institutions.
it's already happening. I mean, I've seen deepfakes online.
Oh, yeah.
And it's getting harder and harder to tell what's real and what's not. It's like a whole new level of information warfare.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of AI-powered autonomous weapons.
That's
Systems that can select and engage targets without human intervention.
So you're saying that we're heading towards a future where wars are fought by machines and the lines between human and artificial combatants are completely blurred? That's terrifying.
It is a concerning possibility. Suleiman brings up a really interesting example from the war in Ukraine. The Aerosvitka, a group of drone hobbyists who use their skills to disrupt the Russian invasion.
I read about that. They were using off-the-shelf drones and some clever hacking to target Russian tanks and supply lines.
Right, it's a powerful example of how accessible technology can level the playing field in conflict.
Yeah.
But it also raises some pretty uncomfortable questions. What happens when that same technology falls into the wrong hands?
It's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it can empower individuals and small groups to challenge larger, more powerful forces. But on the other hand, it makes it that much harder to control the spread of dangerous technologies.
And that brings us back to the issue of containment. Suleiman uses China as an example of how the coming wave could lead to the rise of dystopian surveillance states.
With AI-powered facial recognition and data analysis.
Exactly. Governments could track citizens' every move and control their access to information. And we're already seeing some of that happening.
Even in democratic countries.
Yeah, it's like this creeping erosion of privacy in the name of security.
So where do we draw the line? How do we balance the need for security with the preservation of individual freedoms?
That is the core dilemma.
Oh,
And it's not just about political control.
no.
Think about the economic and social disruption that this wave could bring. AI is rapidly becoming capable of performing tasks that were once thought to be exclusive to humans.
So we're talking about job displacement on a massive scale.
Exactly. And it's not just blue-collar jobs that are at risk.
Yeah.
AI can now write legal briefs, diagnose diseases, even compose music. There's almost no profession that's immune.
I mean, what happens to millions of people whose jobs are automated out of existence? It's not just about the loss of income, it's about the loss of purpose, the loss of identity.
You're absolutely right. It's a deeply human issue. And Suleiman really emphasizes the psychological impact of job displacement. He argues that people's identities are often intertwined with their work. Losing a job can be a devastating blow, not just financially, but emotionally and socially as well.
And we're not exactly great at helping people transition to new careers. I mean, look at what happened when manufacturing jobs were outsourced overseas.
That's a great point. That transition wasn't smooth for a lot of people. And the coming wave could displace workers at an even faster rate. So we really need to be thinking now about how to prepare for this disruption
Yeah.
and how to support people through these changes.
And all of this is happening against a backdrop of already existing inequalities, right? I mean, the people who are most likely to lose their jobs to automation are often the ones who are already struggling.
That's definitely a concern.
Mm-hmm.
And what's even more worrisome is the potential for these technologies to further exacerbate inequality.
In what way?
Imagine a scenario where wealthy elites have access to AI-powered tutors for their children, personalized healthcare, even genetic enhancements.
While the rest of us are left behind.
Yeah.
That sounds like a recipe for social unrest.
Yeah.
I mean, people are already frustrated with the status quo, and if they feel like the system is rigged against them and technology is only making it worse, well, that's a powder keg waiting to explode.
Oh, it's a sobering thought. And it brings us to another crucial aspect of the coming wave: the forces driving this unstoppable advancement. Suleiman identifies four main drivers:
Okay, let's hear them.
great power competition, the open research ecosystem, the immense financial rewards of innovation, and the ever-present human ego.
Let's break those down, starting with great power competition. It feels like we're in a new kind of arms race, but instead of nukes, it's about who controls the most advanced AI.
Exactly. The US and China are pouring billions into AI research and development, each trying to outmaneuver the other.
Yeah.
And it's not just them. Other countries are getting in on the game, recognizing that AI is the key to economic and military dominance in the 21st century.
It's like everyone's trying to get ahead, worried about being left behind, but doesn't that make containment even harder? If everyone is racing to develop these technologies, who's going to slow down and think about the risks?
You've hit on a critical point. The second driver, the open research ecosystem, also makes containment more challenging. Scientists and engineers around the world are constantly sharing their findings, collaborating on projects, and pushing the boundaries of knowledge.
But isn't that a good thing? I mean, collaboration and knowledge sharing have always been the engines of scientific progress.
Absolutely. It's what's so exciting about these fields. But it also means that it's incredibly difficult to control the flow of information. You can't just put the genie back in the bottle. Once an idea is out there, it's out there.
True. Then there's the whole financial incentive piece. I mean, tech companies are making a fortune off of these technologies. Are they really going to prioritize safety over profit?
It's a tough question. There are definitely companies out there that are only interested in the bottom line.
Right.
But there's also a growing movement within the tech industry to prioritize ethical considerations.
Okay.
It's not just about doing the right thing. It's about recognizing that in the long run, building trust and ensuring safety is good for business.
So it's not just about altruism. It's
Yeah.
also about enlightened self-interest.
Exactly. And then there's the final driver. The human ego. Suleiman argues that scientists and engineers are driven by a desire to be first, to make a mark on the world, to push the boundaries of what's possible.
It's that same drive that led us to land on the moon, to crack the human genome, to invent the internet. It's part of what makes us human, this desire to explore, to create, to push the limits.
Right. And it's a powerful force that's difficult to contain. Think about it. We're wired to solve problems, to overcome challenges. So when we see a problem like climate change or disease, our instinct is to find a technological solution, even if that solution carries its own risks. It's part of our nature.
So we've got these incredibly powerful forces pushing the coming wave forward. It feels almost unstoppable. But at the same time, we've got these incredibly serious risks and potential downsides.
That's the heart of the containment dilemma. How do we mitigate the risks without stifling innovation or creating a dystopian surveillance state?
That's what I'm really interested in. Is containment even possible? And if so, what does it look like?
Well, that's precisely what we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
Can't wait. So we've talked about AI, but what about synthetic biology? How does that fit into this coming wave?
Well, synthetic biology is about engineering life itself. It's like moving beyond just reading DNA.
Right.
To actually editing it and even writing it, it's a whole other level of control over the building blocks of life.
Wow. That's pretty mind-blowing.
It is. It's a profound leap in our ability to manipulate life. And one of the key tools in this field is CRISPR gene editing.
CRISPR? I've heard of
This revolutionary technology that's made gene editing much simpler and more affordable.
So CRISPR has kind of democratized access to these powerful biotechnologies.
Exactly. And that's both exciting and a little bit terrifying.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
It used to be that only specialized labs with tons of funding could do this kind of work. Now with CRISPR, almost anyone with basic lab skills can edit genes.
That's pretty amazing, but also kind of scary. Like, what if it falls into the wrong hands?
That's the big question, right? And it's not just CRISPR. The technology for synthesizing DNA is also rapidly advancing.
Since synthesizing DNA, you mean like creating it from scratch?
Exactly. DNA synthesizers are becoming cheaper and more accessible. It's kind of like what happened with personal computers. Remember how they used to be these huge, expensive machines that only governments and big corporations could afford?
Yeah.
Now almost everyone has a powerful computer in their pocket.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with DNA synthesizers.
I see. So you're saying that soon anyone could potentially have the power to create new life forms.
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
And it's something that the scientific community is grappling with right now. I actually went to a seminar recently where they were talking about the falling cost of DNA synthesizers. And someone in the audience brought up this exact point.
What did they say?
They were worried about the potential for bioterrorism or the accidental release of a dangerous organism. Like what if someone creates a superbug that we can't control?
That's a chilling thought. So what can we do about it?
Well, it's like we were talking about with AI. Containment is crucial. We need to find ways to mitigate the risks without stifling innovation. And that's where Suleiman's roadmap comes in.
Right, the 9 elements.
Exactly. Those elements apply to both AI and synthetic biology. We need to build safeguards into the technology itself, ensure transparency through audits, strategically regulate access to key tools, and foster a culture of responsibility among the people developing and using these technologies.
Okay, so we've covered the perils in these forces driving this wave of AI and synthetic biology, but can we actually contain it? I mean, are we just along for the ride at this point?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. Suleiman doesn't sugarcoat the challenges.
Right.
But he does believe that containment is both possible and crucial. But he says it's not about stopping progress altogether.
Right.
It's about steering the wave,
Right.
making sure these technologies serve humanity,
Yeah.
not the other way around.
Okay, so it's about setting up some guardrails, right? But where do we even begin? I mean, these technologies are already so advanced and they're evolving so quickly. It feels like trying to catch a runaway train.
It's a complex challenge, for sure. But Suleiman lays out a pretty comprehensive roadmap for containment. He breaks it down into 9 key elements. Think of it like a multi-layered safety net,
Okay, a safety net.
designed to catch us if we fall.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Let's walk through these elements. What's the first layer of this safety net?
The first layer is technical safety. So this is about building safeguards directly into these technologies.
Okay.
Kind of like designing a car with seatbelts and airbags.
I see.
With AI, this could mean developing algorithms that are inherently robust, transparent, and aligned with human values.
So making sure the AI is fundamentally safe even as it becomes more complex. What about synthetic biology? What kind of safety features can you build into something like CRISPR?
Well, for synthetic biology, it's about preventing the accidental release of harmful organisms. So this could involve engineering safeguards into the organisms themselves,
Okay.
like making them dependent on specific nutrients that don't exist in the wild,
Right.
or creating kill switches that could be activated in case of an emergency.
It's like building a containment system within the organisms themselves. That's fascinating.
It is pretty amazing.
Mhm.
What's interesting is the second element,
Okay, what's that?
audits. So we need mechanisms to ensure transparency and accountability in how these technologies are developed and deployed.
So like independent review boards, ethical guidelines, mandatory reporting of potential risks.
Exactly, like having building inspectors checking the safety of a skyscraper before people move in.
They want to make sure everything is up to code, right?
Exactly.
Oh.
The next one is choke points.
Choke points, what are those?
So this is about strategically regulating access to key technologies to slow down the development of potentially dangerous applications.
Okay, I see the logic there, but wouldn't that stifle innovation?
It's a valid concern.
Okay.
And that's why this approach has to be implemented very carefully. The goal isn't to stop progress,
Right.
but to buy time for safety measures to catch up.
It's like hitting the pause button for a minute.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Just to kind of give us a chance to figure things out. What about the people actually developing these technologies?
Yeah, what role do they play in all of this?
That brings us to the fourth element, the makers. So the scientists, the engineers, the entrepreneurs who are building these technologies, they have a huge responsibility to prioritize safety and ethics from the very beginning.
So it's not just about what they build, but how they build it.
Right. It's about fostering a culture of responsibility within the tech community,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that with great power comes great responsibility.
I love that Spider-Man quote. Okay, so we've got the technical side, the oversight, responsibility of the makers. What about the companies behind these technologies?
That's the fifth element, businesses.
So Suleiman argues for corporate structures that prioritize social responsibility alongside profit.
It's about moving beyond that move fast and break things mentality.
Right,
Less disruption for the sake of disruption.
exactly. More consideration for the long-term impact on society.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the role of government,
Right.
which is the sixth element.
Makes sense. We need strong regulations, clear laws to ensure that these technologies are developed and deployed safely and responsibly.
It seems like a no-brainer, but governments aren't exactly known for their agility or their ability to keep up with the pace of technological change. How do we make sure they're up to the task?
It's definitely a challenge, but it's one we can't ignore. Governments need to invest in research and development, create new regulatory bodies, and update existing laws to reflect these unique challenges posed by AI and synthetic biology.
They need to get ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And it's not just about national governments. We also need international cooperation.
Right.
That's the seventh element.
Makes sense, because no single country can solve this problem alone.
Exactly. We need global norms, standards, regulations to ensure that these technologies are developed and used safely and ethically everywhere.
It's like the climate crisis. We need a coordinated global effort to address these challenges.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the next element, the eighth one, focuses on culture. Yeah. Suleiman argues for a culture that embraces transparency about failures. We need to be able to learn from our mistakes, to share information openly, and to adapt quickly to new challenges.
So moving away from a culture of blame and secrecy
Right.
towards a culture of learning and accountability.
Exactly. And then finally, the ninth element is public engagement. So citizens need to be informed about these technologies, and they need to have a voice in shaping their development.
It's about democratizing the conversation around AI and synthetic biology, making sure that these technologies are developed in a way that benefits all of humanity, not just a select few.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that this is a collective challenge and we all have a stake in the outcome.
So 9 elements, 9 layers of the safety net. It's a pretty comprehensive approach, but I have to admit it all seems a bit overwhelming. Do you really think we can pull this off?
It's a massive undertaking. There's no doubt about that.
Hmm.
But Suleiman argues that it's essential if we want to harness the power of these technologies while avoiding the potential pitfalls. He reminds us of the Luddites, who feared that new technologies would destroy their livelihoods.
And they weren't entirely wrong, were they? I mean, those technologies did lead to job displacement and social upheaval.
They did, but they also led to incredible advancements in human well-being.
Hmm.
I mean, we wouldn't have the modern world we know today without those innovations.
So the challenge is not to stop progress,
Right.
but to steer it in the right direction.
Exactly.
To ensure that these technologies serve humanity, not the other way around.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's about finding that balance, that sweet spot where we can reap the benefits of innovation while mitigating the risks.
Well, that is quite a lot to think about. I have to say this deep dive has been a real eye-opener. From the mind-blowing possibilities of AI and synthetic biology to the very real challenges of containment and the potential impact on society.
And the most important part of this deep dive happens after the episode ends, when you continue to explore these ideas, to ask questions, and to engage in this ongoing conversation about how we shape the future of technology. Because ultimately, this is a conversation that affects us all.
Absolutely. Well, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into AI and synthetic biology. It's been a fascinating journey, and we hope you'll join us again next time for another deep dive into the world around us.